Good morning. I'm Noah Brown. I'm the President and CEO of the Association of Community College Trustees. That is a U.S.-based organization that represents what you would call all the governors of our community and technical colleges throughout the U.S., of which we have about 1,200. And we enroll about 14.3 million students a year and contribute about $36 billion a year to our national economy.
No, can we talk about the UK and US systems and comparing where they're both at the moment?
Sure. That's part of the reason I come over here every year, is to have that discussion. Essentially, we have very similar sectors, but they're moving in very opposite directions. And I think we have a golden opportunity right now to talk about this point of intersection between our systems. So for you in the UK, you have a system that has been what I would say highly federalized, where you got most of your support from the federal government. The federal government had very strict accountability standards. The federal government would assess your effectiveness, and if you didn't meet certain criteria, the government presumably could shut you down. And you had a very loose connection with your community and probably a much weaker system of college governance as a result. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we in the States were always very autonomous. While we did receive governmental funds, we were much more dependent on state and local monies. We had a governance system which was more locally focused and much stronger, kept us focused on our community and our employers, and we had relatively few accountability standards. So you fast forward to today, here in the UK, as I understand, you're looking to become more autonomous, increase the role and effectiveness of your governors, be more focused on employment needs, employer needs, raise more dollars locally to support the colleges, and to gear more of your programs toward local labor market needs. We in the States are now looking at increased national accountability standards. We have a number of states in the U.S. that have enacted strict performance funding metrics, which means that some of our funding will be now subjected to strict performance outcomes and measures. Our governments, by and large, are spending less on our sector than they have in the past. We're having to leverage more funds locally or through tuition, unfortunately. So we're moving in slightly different directions, and I think what we can teach one another about our experiences would be extremely valuable. For example, we in the States need to really understand what it's like to live under the microscope, and how do we deal with a very strict set of accountability and performance standards, whereas I think you in the UK would love to learn more about how do we really focus our colleges on local labor force needs, how do we use our governors, or in our case trustees, to really keep the institution mission focused and focused on its community. So the reason that we have this relationship between my organization and AOC, I think, is precisely to have that type of discussion and to learn as much as we can. I think one of the things we've done quite well is work with our local employers, and so we do this in a variety of ways. Often employers will come to colleges and say, we need so many people with such and such skills. And our colleges, being very nimble, very flexible, locally focused, are able to build programs quickly to meet employer needs. So we can do this either on campus. Sometimes we go to the workplace and provide those sessions. Or we might build off of employer education and training programs that exist. Whatever the right solution is, we try and scale it to the employer's needs. So I think we've done a good job in that regard. The big challenge we have in the US, which is probably not unlike the UK, we're still moving out of this post-industrialized world. And so we haven't got it quite right. We're not moving always quick enough to adapt to changes in the global economy. So there are a lot of areas where we still have labor shortages. Employers will tell you in the States that we have an estimated 2 million jobs that they have difficulty filling because we don't have people with the skills. So it's a challenge for us to really be proactive and to build those programs and then attract people into them. So I think one of the things that we can help the UK understand is what's the right relationship with employers and what's the right balance. But also, I think the lesson learned is we need to figure out a way to make sure that our programs match very closely labor's needs. And so we don't have these job shortages in critical need areas, particularly in manufacturing, by the way.
I was going to say, we were going to talk later about STEM. It seems to naturally flow into
Well,
your work you've been doing.
yes, we're heading into STEM. Now, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, very important. In the States, for example, a lot of our manufacturing has become very high-tech. Very different from what our mothers and fathers may have thought of manufacturing. So it's very high-tech, requires high skills. We need to attract young people into manufacturing, but we need to make sure that they have the science, technology, engineering, and math skills that are required. That's very important. So we're refocusing on the STEM professions in the United States. We're talking about creating a range of partnerships between our elementary and secondary schools, our community technical colleges, our four-year universities, so that we can provide more seamless pathways into those fields. The other challenge that we have in the States, which, as you know, I recently wrote about, is that there's still a lot of people in the States who think of manufacturing as kind of assembly line, dirty jobs, not high status. And so we have difficulty attracting young people into manufacturing, even though manufacturing today is high tech. I grew up in the state of Michigan, which is known as the automobile state. And I can tell you that if you go to an automobile manufacturing plant in Michigan today, it looks nothing like what it did in my childhood. It's computerized, people work in teams, you have very few people actually tightening bolts and doing things like that. They're actually programming computers, monitoring the systems, so it requires a whole different way of thinking and a whole different skill set than it used to do. Student engagement is key. There are a lot of things that we should do better in the U.S. For example, when I was here last year, I went to the Skills Show. I was completely blown away by not only the size and the scale, but the fact that you had so many young people and their parents coming to the Skills Show to really see firsthand what's out there and how literally exciting and engaging a lot of these professions are in manufacturing or in other fields. We don't have anything like that in the States, not at that level. And I think it's a real missed opportunity. So I think, first of all, we need to find ways to really reach out to young people and their parents so they fully understand the possibilities of what exists and get them excited. And to remind them that manufacturing, for example, is very exciting and can be very fulfilling and, frankly, is good paying. There are jobs in manufacturing in the States where you could start off at $50,000 or $60,000. That's a pretty good wage still in the United States, and I suspect it is in the UK. And we got to get people to understand that, and that they can have a slice of what we call the American dream, which is owning a house and a car and a TV and maybe an iPhone, right? That they can have that through manufacturing, and doesn't require necessarily a four-year college degree, but absolutely requires a high-quality career vocational technical certificate or training. So we've got to get the messaging right. We've got to attract people into it, make sure they understand the possibility. We also have to support them. We've got to make sure that students are successful and do all the things we know to help them be successful and get them on a career trajectory that makes sense for them.